Welcome to the Catch Up, a podcast from the Daily Catch where we take you inside the news. My name is Walter Mullen, and I'm the publisher of the Daily Catch.
And I'm Emily Sachar, the editor and founder of the Daily Catch.
In this podcast, we discuss stories that have appeared in the Daily Catch. We give you insights into how we put the stories together, offer additional observations, and discuss where the stories may be heading as we move forward. And just a quick reminder to listeners, if you like our broadcast, please be sure to subscribe or follow on your favorite platform so you'll be notified every time we drop a new episode. Now today, Emily, we're doing something a bit different. Normally, I'm the one asking you the questions, but today you're going to be asking me the questions because I recently found myself part of a news story, and we also have a special guest on today's episode. So tell our listeners what's going on.
All right, we have to say, let's catch up. So we're going to catch up to that news.
Going to catch up.
I have to also remind our listeners, they're getting to know you slowly, Walter, that there is not an Amtrak story you don't love. So this is a story for you, about you, with you. It's you all over. All right. So we recently heard about a woman who was trapped in an elevator at the Amtrak Rhinecliff Station. That woman is our special guest today, Linda Hemphill. Welcome, Linda, on the show.
Thank you, Emily.
So, Walter, we know about this, and we got the exclusive because you were on the station when it happened. Before we go through the details of what happened to poor Linda, tell us a little bit about that station for listeners who don't visit it as often as you do. What goes on there? Tell us about the elevator. Just situate us in time and space.
There's one thing you have to know about the Rhinecliff Station if you've never been there. It's on multiple levels. The train pulls in on a platform that's actually at the same level as the river. You disembark from the train, and then you have to go up either an elevator or a very big set of stairs to get up to the main level. And then you walk out to the main station, or you go up to another level. So there's lots of stairs and lots of levels at the Amtrak station. So the elevator at the Amtrak station is really important because if you have a lot of luggage or if you have any mobility issues, the elevator is critical. And the elevator takes you from the train platform level up to the main level where you can then walk out to the main station and the drop-off area. Point number two is you have to also realize while the Amtrak Rhinecliff station is a beautiful station, it is completely decrepit. And over 2.5 years ago, Amtrak embarked on what was supposed to be a massive renovation of the station. And the renovation is still planned, but nothing has been done. So the main waiting room has been closed for over 2.5 years as a temporary waiting room. You go to the Amtrak station, it feels as if it's about to fall apart. So those of us who take it frequently were really excited about this renovation, which has been stalled. Those are the two things to know. Many, many levels to the station. The elevator is critically important, and we're all awaiting this big renovation, which has yet to begin.
Okay, and you mentioned, Walter, that the elevator goes from the platform up to the station level. It also goes the other direction, right? It takes people to and from. Okay, so that's where our story begins. It's centered at that elevator. So, Linda, you were visiting the Rhinebeck area several months ago. Tell us about you. Where do you live? Why were you here? Why were you in town?
I live in New York City, in Manhattan, and my sister and my 97-year-old mother live in Elizaville. So I take the train up to Rhinecliff every month or so to visit them. And my mom just recently went into a nursing home. So we're up there visiting her. So I've been making a lot more trips up there than I usually do. I'd gone up the day before, and I was heading back to New York City when I met Walter.
Okay, so when you went up the day before, did you use the elevator when you disembarked from the train?
Yes, I did. And fortunately, that was a lovely ride. I rarely take the elevator, but I took the elevator because I have a broken toe. And it's only one toe, and you know they can't do anything for toes. They just tape them. But it was all taped up. I was in my sneakers that my podiatrist has approved for me to wear. And so I got on the elevator, and it was me, a man with a great big suitcase, a woman holding a toddler, and a woman with a stroller. So the four of us crowded into that elevator. Walter, you know what that would be like. And we rode up, and it takes forever, but you do get up to the second floor. So everybody got out and it was fine. So on the way back, even though I could have walked down the stairs, because down is much easier than going up, I thought, I've only got another week with this tow business. I'm just not going to push it. So I got into the elevator alone.
Alone. Okay.
Alone.
So this was the very next day, right?
Yes, the very next day.
There was no sign on the elevator saying there was any issue with the elevator?
Oh, no.
Okay.
And it wasn't clunky or anything on the way up on the day before. It was perfectly fine.
Okay, fantastic. So you get into the elevator the very next day. You're at the station level that Walter just described for us. Tell us exactly what happens at that point. You're with your luggage. What goes on inside that elevator?
I get in the elevator, and we didn't mention the temperature that day. It was stinking hot. It was 99 degrees outside, my sister's car said as we pulled into the station. And the doors closed just fine. No bumps, no jumps. And we started to slowly go down, and it's dirty. The elevator is filthy. And so I stood kind of in the center of it. I didn't put my bags down because I have the one wheeling bag, and that is on the ground. But then I had a shopping bag and my purse. So I had them on my shoulders, and I'm standing there, and we get to the bottom finally. And there's two doors to the elevator, the inside metal door and then the outside door that opens onto the platform. The inside metal door opened up. The outside door opened halfway and then slammed shut.
Oh my God, that part I didn't know. So it started to open.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I saw the platform.
And then
it slammed shut. And I thought, oh great. The stupid elevator, it's dirty in here. It's 99 degrees.
Right.
And
you're alone.
And I'm alone. And I didn't know at that point if my phone would work. I did have a charge on my phone because my Amtrak tickets are on my phone. So I always make sure I can get to my ticket when I get on the train. But in elevators, sometimes in my own elevator at home, if I go down the basement, I lose service.
Okay. So what did you do before somebody arrived to help you? What did you do at that point?
I did everything I was supposed to do. I look at the panel, and the first thing I did was press that door open button, which had worked the day before. So I pressed the door open button, and there wasn't even a wobble on the outside door. I thought, okay, that's fine. So the first thing I do is I ring that alarm bell, which is what I would do in my own building. Ring the bell, and I could hear it. It was a nice loud bell. So I rang it, and I thought somebody will run right out and figure out that I'm in here. I looked around the inside of the filthy elevator to see if there were any cameras, but there aren't. My elevator at home, of course, it's not a big high rise, but it's a high rise building. And we have cameras in the elevator to see if anybody should be stuck. And I rang it. Nothing happened. I rang it again. Nothing happened.
And
nothing
happened. You did hear the sound.
I heard the bell, but I heard no people coming to help me. So then on the bottom, it's the panel that in my building would go to either a 911 or to the fire department. It's like an intercom, a PA system, and there's a button that sort of protrudes from there, and it's a big sign, press only once.
Different from the alarm.
Yes, that's correct. It makes no sound.
What does this do?
In my building, you press it, and somebody comes on in a very disembodied voice saying, are you stuck? Whatever. I pressed it. Nothing happened. It said to press only once. I thought, okay, I'm not going to, be pressing that thing that wasn't making any noise. So then I went back to pressing the alarm button within the elevator. I heard the alarm bell ring, but nobody was on the platform yet.
But when in your journey down and in your saga did Walter show up?
I think I was in there probably 10 minutes maybe before he showed up.
Were you standing up at that point, or were you completely frustrated?
I was stupidly standing up with my bags on my shoulder because I wasn't putting them down on the dirty floor. I had a bottle of water because sometimes the Amtrak cafe car is closed on the way back to New York. So I thought, okay, well, this is stupid. I am stuck. I'm going to put my bags down on this filthy floor. I'm going to drink some water. In most elevators, modern elevators, if you press the open and close buttons at the same time, the doors will automatically open unless you're between floors. I knew I was down on the ground floor, so that was the good thing. So then I decided, since the alarm wasn't working, I pressed the other one that said press only once, where no one ever came in on that intercom, no one. And then I started knocking on the metal door. Now, this is the one onto the platform. So I know it's not knocking on the inside door, which probably no one could have heard me.
Let's just understand. You did all these things. You pressed all these buttons. Nothing happened. Did you ever think about using your cell phone to get help?
Yes, the next thing I did was call my sister, who turned out to be just halfway home, about 10 minutes away.
Okay.
She turned around to come back and see who was down there helping me or how I was going to get out. By that point, the station agent came down to try and help me get out with a rusty piece of metal that she was trying to pry the door open with. And she was unable to do it. And she had found out about me being in the elevator because a man in the parking lot who attends the parking lot heard me ringing the bell that does not ring in the Amtrak trailer office that Walter described before. It may ring in the station itself, which is closed. So if he hadn't gone into Amtrak to tell her that somebody was down there, no one would have known until my sister finally got back 10 minutes later.
You called your sister, but by the time your sister had arrived at the station, a parking lot attendant had somehow arranged to go down there and get help for you. And among the people he got to help you was the station agent who womans this trailer that has been set up opposite the station during the renovation that's been, quote unquote, going on, but not going on since December of 2022.
That is correct.
No fire department had showed up, right?
No. And at that point, when my sister arrived at the station, she walked into the trailer, sees that it's unattended, and says out loud to the people sitting in there, "My sister is stuck in the elevator." And then they all get kind of, "Oh, wow, that's something exciting." And my sister called 911. They never answered.
They never answered.
No. So then she told Siri to call the Rhinecliff Fire Department. And they said they were already on the way because the station agent had called them.
Wow. So your sister had some real presence of mind there to
And
go beyond 911, right?
She called 911, I think, because by the time she got there, I'd been in the elevator, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes.
Okay, so let's bring Walter in now to help us tell the rest of the story. So Walter, what happened? Why were you in the station briefly? And what did you do to help Linda?
I was coming back up to Rhinecliff on a northbound train. I had been down in the city for a couple of days. I got off the train and I said to myself, I'm going to walk over and see if the elevator is working, because what listeners need to know is that elevator had been out of service for almost a month. So we did a story on that, the elevator being out of service, and I knew the elevator was then put back in service. So I thought, well, I'll walk over and see if the elevator's working. I got there right as the station agent was trying to pry open the door, and I said to her, "What's going on?" And she said, "There's a woman trapped in the elevator." And I thought to myself, well, now we have a really good story. So I said to the station agent, "How can I help?" And she said, "There's really no way to help." I then started talking to Linda, because you could talk through the door. And I said, "Are you okay?" And Linda said yes. I said, "Do you have water?" Linda said yes. Then I said to the station agent, "Well, what's going to happen here?" And the station agent said, "I've called the elevator repair person. He is on the way." But in the interim, she was trying to pry open the door with that piece of metal unsuccessfully. So then she went up to the upper level to try to find the elevator repairman and or wait for the fire people. So I decided to stay with Linda and just keep her company. I didn't want her to be in there all alone. I felt very badly for her. So then Linda and I started talking, and I said, "What's your name? And, what do you do? And where do you live?" We had a very nice chat, didn't we, Linda?
Well, he scared the hell out of me because he said, "What's your name?" And you know how on those police dramas where they're holding your hand and you've got a sucking chest wound and you're going to die? I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to die in this elevator. And Walter's going to say she was a lovely woman. I tried to hold her hand, but I couldn't reach it through there. And I said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I'm a reporter." I said, "Boy, the news has already broken in Rhinecliff that there's a woman stuck in the elevator."
We are everywhere.
It was so funny. It was so funny.
One of your biggest concerns, though, was catching your train. So Linda said to me, my train's coming. And I said, well, maybe they'll hold it for you. I was trying to keep you calm.
I know.
But sure enough, about 10 minutes later, your southbound train pulls in. The station agent then goes over to the conductors who step off the train to help people get on and explain that there's a woman trapped in the elevator who needs to get on this train. So then, very dramatically, these two conductors walk over and they had a proper crowbar. And one of the conductors tried to pry open the door with his crowbar. And they tried for about 2 or 3 minutes, really, really trying to get that door open, and they couldn't get it open. So they said to the agent, I'm sorry, we'd love to stay and hold the train, but we can't do that. So then the train pulled away, and I had to break the very sad news to Linda that her train just left.
But ultimately, the new elevator repairman, I should say new, he's not new to his job, but there's a new contract that Amtrak has given out to keep that elevator operating. And it was a man from that company who showed up. And that was the coup de resistance, the coup that saved you, right?
Yes.
Linda. So what happened then? What, you were released from bondage?
Well, this time my sister's down on the platform talking to Walter. They're talking to me through this little thing in the door. They left that piece of rusty metal in between. I had sat down on the floor because I was very hot and sweaty. And then when he came with that crowbar, I got up and moved over. By now I felt at least I wasn't going to die alone in the elevator because I had a whole group out there. And he pried the door open. She did try turning on and off the electricity a few times, and that did nothing.
Okay.
And so he pried it open, the door popped open, and it closed. And then he pried it open again, and then I was free.
And then you were out, and then you had to wait a while, because we should mention to the listeners that you had gotten to the station a little early, and also your original train was late. That's why you had some hope that possibly this ordeal would be over in time to catch your train. But you did catch the next train.
I caught the next train.
And did Amtrak do anything for you, Linda, for your trouble?
Actually, they were very nice. And from what I understood, the elevator isn't really their responsibility. My sister and I left and went and got an ice cream sundae. And the district manager called me when I arrived back at the station for my next train, and she apologized profusely. The station agent got me onto the next train. That first train was booked, so I was really happy to even be on the 5:38, whatever train it was. And she said they had upgraded me to business class, which was very nice of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I rode home in business class. And then the next day or 2 days later, I got an email from Amtrak saying that they had refunded my southbound trip altogether. So that was a free business class trip. And they had given me a voucher for $25. So I'm going back there on Wednesday. I've used that voucher and I won't be on that elevator. But I will take a picture, Walter, and send it to you of me standing in front of it.
So, Linda, it's been several weeks. Thank you for your story. How do you feel now? How do you feel about what happened to you and so forth?
I will tell you, when I was there, I think because Walter was there with me and my sister, and I did have cell phone service, I thought it was just kind of a funny thing. I don't know how many comments from Facebook and on Instagram saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe you went through this ordeal. Are you okay? So then I realized it's a really big deal. I'm lucky. I am 71 years old. I'm in good shape, except for the broken toe, which is not serious. But what if it had been somebody else? This could have been a real tragedy. Other people might have panicked in there. And I was just lucky that I didn't, and that the heat didn't bother me so much. But some people can't stand it when it gets that hot. And I was in there for a good 45 minutes. And there's no water and no place to sit. I can get down to the floor and get back up. Some people can't.
Right.
And I realized how serious the situation it was. The things that concerned me is the buttons that didn't work. That bell that didn't ring in the trailer. What's that about? I had to rely on a parking lot guy? That's not right. And that other button, I don't even know where that went. That intercom thing. I should have had a voice in there to immediately calm me down and say, someone knows you're in there. You're not alone. What if I was on Walter's last train coming back from New York and it's 11 o'clock at night and I missed the first elevator because there were too many people in it? And then I go up and I'm by myself. What then?
So when you have the time to process what really happened, you realize how many pieces of this puzzle were broken.
Were broken, exactly.
And that must be very disconcerting to you.
It is. And I'll tell you, like I said, I live in an elevator building, so I take elevators every day. I also went to the Tarrytown train station to visit friends the next week. And I also, with the broken toe, rode the elevator at Tarrytown. which is a glass elevator. And I filmed the whole thing going up, thinking if I had ever had another elevator news story, I know how to film the interiors. But I made my friends wait downstairs until I got up and waved at them because it made
very
me,
smart.
and I never would do that, but it really made me think twice.
All right. Well, we are so grateful that you came on the Catch Up because you told your story with grace and finesse and you remembered it carefully, but also it's a warning.
It's a warning.
It's something that, we at the Daily Catch, Linda, try very hard not to get involved emotionally in our stories. But I think this is something that we really can all relate to. All of our listeners, many of them have been in that elevator or have seen other people take it. And being stuck in an elevator is something that is many people's deepest, darkest fear.
Yes.
And you lived through it and it's local. So thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you for having me. And I hope somebody listens to it and at least repairs those buttons.
So I want to echo something that you just said, Emily. There are many pieces to this puzzle which are broken. Let's dig in a little bit deeper. How did Amtrak respond to the Daily Catch when you reached out to them about this episode?
Yeah. So it was interesting. Initially, they said they couldn't get answers from me. And I said, well, we are doing a story on this. And then they did get some answers from me. They told me who had come to help and so forth. But they couldn't tell me why these various components that Linda just described so eloquently for us weren't working. And they still have not described those things for us. We've continued to ask. We've continued to get no answers. That's very frustrating. They did tell us initially that they had given her the upgrade to the business class. They had not at that point decided to comp her whole ticket and to give her the voucher. So that must have happened later. But that's where we are right now. Also, when we were able to reach out to the company that sent the individual who ultimately got Linda out, that company declined to comment to us. I'm sure they're under some kind of situation or some kind of agreement with Amtrak that Amtrak does all the talking. So it's been incredibly frustrating for us and very typical, I'm sad to say, of the information that we get from Amtrak when we try to cover anything happening at that station. It is really, really difficult. And it frustrates our readers. It frustrates our listeners today that we cannot get full-bodied answers to our questions. We still don't really know, Walter, why this station delay has gone on for 2.5 years. And we're not going to talk about that today, I know. But I want our readers and our listeners to know that we care about them. We want answers to these questions, and we continue to probe.
I think what those of us who use the station on a regular basis have been frustrated and annoyed by the delay. But now here's a consequence of the delay. That elevator has not been maintained properly. So here's a very specific consequence of that delay, which could have ended very badly. So let's talk about a couple more things. Mark Molinaro is now in a role in federal government involving transportation. Is he able to step in and perhaps help to rectify this?
A good question. I assumed yes, right? I'm not an expert on the Department of Transportation. It turns out, in fact, Walter, there are two different agencies that are involved in rail transportation in the United States. One is the Federal Rail Administration, and that is the one that monitors the Amtrak situation around the country. The other is the Federal Transit Administration, and that is the one to which Mark Molinaro was just approved by the Senate, confirmation approved by the Senate in a very strong vote, 71, I think, to 23 in favor. And so I asked Mark, would he be able to help with this? And he was not able to comment on the record because this is not the responsibility of the agency that he will be managing. That agency is responsible for buses and rail commuter transportation. So like the New York City subway system, that will fall under Mark Molinaro's jurisdiction. But Amtrak is not technically a commuter rail, even though many people use it as a commuter rail. That is not how it is regulated in the United States. So it will be his compatriot at the Federal Rail Administration that will be responsible for anything that involves this.
So let's bring this right up to the present, Emily. I've heard there's been another incident in the elevator at the station. Can you tell us what happened?
Can you believe that, Walter? I mean, just less than 2 weeks after this incident with Linda Hemphill, we heard on Saturday about another group stuck in the elevator. This group was a group of three different groups, I think it was three different people, and they were coming up from the platform. Linda was going down to the platform, and they were stuck in there for about 45 minutes. The Rhinecliff Fire Department did respond and extricated them. In fact, their Facebook post talks about how it was a day of extrications. They extricated 3 people from that elevator, and they apparently extricated, I think, somebody from a car. So another incident, no sooner had they, quote unquote, repaired the elevator, which makes me wonder, and probably makes you and our listeners wonder, is the elevator even fixable, right? And I want to make another point here in my moment of mini outrage. As Linda pointed out, or maybe she didn't, there are 41 stairs from the platform, between the platform and the station level. If you come to the elevator and you want to take it and you have no other way to get down, you are not able to take your train, right? There is nothing you can do. You can't push a wheelchair down that flight of stairs or up that flight of stairs. You must have an elevator. So this is really a serious ADA compliance issue. This is not acceptable in 2025 for our citizens to be living with this. And I just want to assure our listeners that the minute I am back, I'm actually working remotely right now, but the minute I'm back, I'm going to be working further on trying to understand how this could have happened and what is the plan for that elevator, because we have no guarantee of when the station renovation, of which this repair is supposed to be a part, is going to take place.
Very good point.
That's where we are. This is a continuing story.
And I guess the takeaway for listeners, if you're going to the Amtrak Rhinecliff station and you don't need to take the elevator right now, don't take it. Use the stairs.
Yeah, that seems to be the wise thing.
So let's move on to a happier topic. I'm going to ask you a question, Emily, as part of our Ask Emily and Walter, and this is a somewhat happier topic. The Duchess County Fair is going to kick off next week, and we love the fair. We do a lot of coverage for the fair. I know you and your reporters are getting ready. How do you prepare for covering a big multi-day event like the fair? How do you find the stories? How do you tee them up? And how do you jump in?
Great question. And we're very excited this year, Walter, because we have a sponsor for our fair coverage for the first time. Foster's at the Fair will be sponsoring our coverage. And that's really great news for our listeners and our readers, because it means we can be in more places than we could be in the past. So you love Amtrak. I love the fair. I just adore it. And why do I love it? Well, I love the wide nature of it. It touches so many different kinds of life. So there's the food. There are the 4-H kids who, with their farms, occupy many, many, many stalls and booths at the fair. There is the Century Village, where you can see an old 19th century village in full operation. You can see a Model T Ford being repaired. You can see women milking and, well, I don't know if they're churning butter in there, but they're doing the things they would do in a Victorian era kitchen. They're doing printing presses. We have a blacksmith shop that works just outside there with old machines that can saw wood. We have the Midway. There's a new ride on the Midway this year called the Colossus. There's milkshakes. There's the Frisbee dogs. There's Hilby, the skinny German juggler. There's acts. There's roving acts. There's stationary acts. There's so much going on there. And I go there for 7 days. I go there to cover it. It's a 6-day event. We also have move-in day on Sunday, 2 days before the fair opens. I shouldn't say 7 days. It's actually like 8 days that we are at the fair. We embed ourselves at the fair. We use hotspots to sync our computers up to the internet, and we can publish from the fairgrounds, which is really exciting. I think we're the only news organization in the area that does that. To answer your question, we begin planning much, much earlier in the year. We make sure we have all our key contacts in place. We're reaching out to Mr. Janis, whose family runs the Midway. We're reaching out to a woman like Becky Shell, who this year will have 5 children participating in 4-H events, showing their hogs, their steers, their cows. We reach out to the people who run the vegetable judging. Vegetables are presented at the fair. Beautiful, beautiful assortments. The hottest pepper known to man has been presented at the fair, not this year, but in other years. We find out what's new at the fair. We talk to Vicky Imperati, who runs the fairgrounds. We talk to many, many, many people ahead of the fair to find out what will be happening this year. And then we start to assign our reporters. We have every reporter who works for us. We don't have a big crew, but everybody will be involved in fair coverage. I will be there every single day Probably not morning to night, but I will be there for many hours. And Walter, we will blow it out of the park. We will do everything we can to cover this many-faceted, multi-layered event that brings thousands and thousands of people to our town, to the fairgrounds.
Wonderful. So the Duchess County Fair kicks off next Tuesday, August 19th, and runs through Sunday, August 24th.
That's correct. And we'll be there.
We'll be
Even if
there.
it's pouring rain, we will be there.
This concludes our episode of the Catch Up. We hope you enjoyed listening. If you like our broadcast, please be sure to subscribe or follow on your favorite platform so you'll be notified every time we drop a new episode. Thank you to Matty Rosenberg and Jen Hammoud at Radio Free Rhinecliff for their help producing today's episode. And thank you to Esther Martel for her help with editing. Emily, always fun catching up with you.
That was certainly fun to have you part of the story, Walter.